Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the EVPA webinar, How Can Investors for Impact Best Work with Crowdfunding Platforms? Today, we are delighted to present you with a new EVPA publication, Accelerating the SDGs, How Can the Role of Crowdfunding in Investing for Impact. With this presentation, we will provide you with a deeper dive on the role of crowdfunding, and also we will look at the case study of the French crowdfunding platform Lita.co. Today we have a fantastic panel of speakers, starting with Francesca Passeri, who is the Deputy Director of the European Crowdfunding Network. She's responsible for advocacy and for strategic development of the ECN, and also previously she has worked for the Emilia-Romagna delegation to the European Union. We also have Pierre Schmidtkal, who is lead co-founder and head of investment at Lita. He graduated in finance by the EDEC business schools at the University of Mannheim, and he also has experience in global wealth management at Merrill Lynch. We also have Jean-Sébastien Rabou, who is director of investors at INCO, where he joined in 2019. And also he has more than 10 years experience in financial auditing and in transaction services. Finally, we also have Thibaut Hiller-Baumgartlichen, who is a financial analyst for social investments at BNP Paribas Asset Management. Thibaut has been working with BNP Paribas for more than 2 years now, and he also has a master in management and social entrepreneurship from the ESSEC Business School. I am Arnau Picon. I am research associate at EVPA, and I have been working on this crowdfunding platforms project together with my colleagues Peter Kafferky and Alessia Gianoncelli. As mentioned, today we will present this new publication of the EVPA, which I will do in the introduction very briefly, and then we will leave the floor to Francesca to provide us with more insights on the crowdfunding sector. And then we will look at the case of Lita.co. First, Pierre Schmidtkal will provide us with an overview of this crowdfunding platform. And then we will look at 2 cases of collaboration with INCO and BNP Paribas Asset Management. So first, Jean-Sébastien Rabou will tell us a little bit more on the partnership that they have put together, and Pierre will also jump in. And finally, Thibaut will also tell us a little bit more with the partnership of BNP Paribas Asset Management, and also Pierre will provide his insights on that. We will also have a 10 minutes Q&A, and then we will close the webinar. Before starting, some tips and tricks. So during the session, you will be able to open and hide the panel that you have in the right side of your screen. We will have, as mentioned, 10 minutes for a Q&A session. So whenever you have a question you would like to ask, you can write it down in the control panel, and then during the Q&A we will use that question. We are keeping everyone muted today, and also this webinar is being recorded, so in the next days you will be able to watch this recording and also consult the slides of the presentation on the EVPA website. Finally, if you have any technical issue during the webinar, please send an email to my colleague Gianluca Gaggiotti at ggaggiotti@evpa.com. So starting with the presentation of this new publication, Accelerating the SDGs, the role of crowdfunding in investing for impact. This publication is looking at what we call impact crowdfunding platforms. So what are they, and how they are addressing the SDG financing gap. Impact crowdfunding platforms, I will tell you a little bit more into this, but just for you to know already, they are both grant-based crowdfunding platforms and also social investment crowdfunding platforms. So this is a categorization done regardless of the financial instrument that they are using, but more looking at how they put impact at the core of their activities. In this publication, we look at the role of these crowdfunding platforms within the impact ecosystem, and we look at the opportunities that they can bring to other investors for impact, such as impact funds, foundations, or financial institutions, but also what are the challenges that, due to their uniqueness, these crowdfunding platforms are facing. to amplify the social impact. The publication has a strong focus on collaboration, and we look at different types of collaboration that are to be explored by crowdfunding platforms and by other investors for impact. So we look at what are these investors for impact that can collaborate with crowdfunding platforms, what are the types of collaboration, and today we will also have this strong focus reflected on the topic of the webinar as well. And finally, the publication also overviews how the sector is evolving and what are the actions needed from different stakeholders to strengthen the sector. Just a couple of notes for this publication. We have been developing this for 6 months. We have had inputs from more than 40 experts and practitioners from across Europe. So we had group calls with experts from crowdfunding platforms, but also from impact funds, from financial institutions, from foundations. We had some one-to-one in-depth interviews, and also some experts provide us with feedback to the final draft. So we are very thankful to all of them that have been contributed to this publication, and also especially to our partners, Fund for Impact, who have been alongside us during all this project, and they have been constantly supporting and contributing to shaping this publication, and also with financial support from Innovate UK, to whom we are also very thankful. So before starting, only to set up a little bit the scene, what are impact crowdfunding platforms? We map them in this spectrum of capital that we have from EBPA, in which we have traditional grant making in the left side of the screen now, and also sustainable and responsible investing on the right side. So in between, we have these 2 strategies: investing for impact and investing with impact, who probably many of you already know, but if not, you can also look more on our website on what they mean. But basically, investors for impact are those that are starting from social impact and trying to solve societal issues, is the core of their activities. So looking at this, we have engaged grant making, and also we have social investment that are part of investing for impact. And in the same way, we have grant-based crowdfunding platforms and social investment crowdfunding platforms that are these impact crowdfunding platforms. We acknowledge that there are other crowdfunding platforms that are providing more traditional grant making, so that they are providing grants, but they don't have social impact at the core of their activities. And also there are some crowdfunding platforms that are providing loans and equity, but only for profit issues. And yeah, so they are also excluded from that sample, let's say. So what we are looking here, and again, I cannot stress this enough, it's regardless of the financial instrument they are using, is those crowdfunding platforms that are putting social impact at the core of their activities. Since we are having this in-depth focus on collaboration, what has been very highlighted for many practitioners and experts is this ability of amplifying the social impact that crowdfunding platforms can have if they find the adequate ways to set up partnerships with other investors for impact, and with the public sector, and with different stakeholders. And what we look at the publication is these 2 things that are to be assessed. One is who to partner with, and the other is what types of collaborations are out there. So looking a little bit more into this, some actors that can be collaborating with crowdfunding platforms are, first, of course, other crowdfunding platforms. So there are some interesting cases of social investment crowdfunding platforms collaborating with grant-based crowdfunding platforms, for example, but also other investors for impact can set up interesting partnerships with crowdfunding platforms, such as impact funds, foundations, financial institutions. And looking at the types of partnerships, there are those partnerships that are more focused on directly providing financial support to social purpose organizations. So we talk about co-investments, we talk about also anchor investments in crowdfunding campaigns, and also match funding instruments. But there are also other types of partnerships that involve sharing deals and sharing knowledge and data. Today, we are very lucky to have such a diverse panel because we will look at how LITA has been collaborating with two different types of organizations, so the Impact Fund INCO and also BNP Paribas as a financial institution. And you will see that the partnership with INCO or the part that you will listen from INCO is more related to the financial support part, whereas with BNP Paribas Asset Management, there are also more focus on sharing deals and knowledge, which is this other part. So I hope this case study will also provide you with an overview of all what crowdfunding platforms can do to partner with other actors in the ecosystems. And we hope that this case study will be very interesting. But before going to that, I would like to leave the floor to Francesca, who will tell us more about what is crowdfunding and how the sector has been evolving in the last years. Francesca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arnau. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. And actually, I want to congratulate EVPA on this publication because I think it's of utmost importance for the crowdfunding sector to start looking into SDGs, but more importantly, also on how to combine strengths with other types of investors. So I just want to give you a quick introduction on what crowdfunding is. And so I thought it would be good to start from a definition. The definition of crowdfunding is basically stating that it is a practice that allows companies or even associations to raise funds for specific projects from a large number of individuals. And this happens typically via an internet-based platform. So here in this definition, which is common to all four crowdfunding models, we see that there are four main elements that need to be underlined. The first thing that is a bit revolutionary in contrast with the more traditional financial system is that it is an open call. So the call to raise funds, the call for support goes out to a large number of people, basically, and potentially anyone with an access to the internet could contribute to a crowdfunding campaign. And this is, of course, enabled by the presence and the extent that the internet has reached so far. So ideally, the digital revolution, together with an increase in the feeling for democratization of finance, have brought upon crowdfunding after the financial crisis hit in 2008-2012. So basically, starting from this definition, from highlighting how crowdfunding is something that breaks with what we had known before its emergence on the scene, I think it's also relevant to understand what is the size of crowdfunding, how relevant it is in the financial landscape. Why are we looking at crowdfunding with increased attention, and why should it be taken into account when setting up and designing a financial scheme? So here, just a few figures on the size of the market in Europe. I promise it's the first and last graph in this presentation. I know it's early in the morning. So here, basically, we tried to track, actually it was Cambridge, University of Cambridge, that tried to track the size of the crowdfunding market in Europe starting from 2012. And here I've basically brought to you data that related up until 2017. And as you can see from the graph, it's not necessary to look at the absolute figures. You can see that the market is steadily growing. And it's not a growth that relates necessarily to the small size as it was initially. From 2012 to 2013, we had a 77% increase in volumes, which was understandable if you look at the absolute figures. But then if you look at the data from 2016 to 2017, we see that the increase is maintained. And we know that this rate of growth of the market has been maintained also from 2017 up to 2020. In 2020, we were quite surprised with the growth of the crowdfunding market, as as you all know, the COVID crisis hit, but crowdfunding proved it to be, again, a mechanism that works well when there is a crisis striking. That was born after the financial crisis, and it proved to be actually an asset also in this period. So in this picture, basically, what you don't see is that lending and equity crowdfunding are the leading models, but that reward-based crowdfunding, so the grant-based crowdfunding, is also increasing in size. And another thing that is relevant to point out is the success rate on average per crowdfunding model. So how many projects do actually achieve their funding target when they approach a crowdfunding platform? And here you have a breakdown per model, and you see that 2 out of 3 projects succeed in getting funding in donation and reward-based crowdfunding, and we go up to 3 out of 4 when we speak about lending and equity. And this is absolutely relevant for those that need funding, but also tells us that there is willingness on the side of private investors and individual and retail investors to actually support companies through this mechanism. If we move to the next slide, I want to also point out that the growth is something that is positive in the market, but of course we cannot ignore that there still are obstacles that hinder the full development of this mechanism. And the first one relates to the regulatory constraints that are still taking place in Europe. At the moment, the situation that we have currently is that each member state is able to regulate crowdfunding according to their own national rule. And this discrepancy has, of course, brought differences also in the size of the markets across member states. And now the good news is we're moving towards a harmonized regulatory framework with the European Crowdfunding Service Provider Regulation that was actually published last year by the European Commission and is going to enter into force in November this year. So this more harmonized set of rules will likely enable the crowdfunding market to grow even more, because platforms will be able to truly operate in a common market. Second obstacle is more related to trust. So we know that crowdfunding is still little known, and so crowdfunding platforms struggle a bit to establish that sound reputation that is needed when you try to raise money from a large crowd of individuals. So it's also due to a lack of financial literacy and a lack of unbiased information. Unbiased information means that the information that you can mainly find about crowdfunding are developed and made available by market operators, which are, of course, trying to promote themselves on the market. And so this is, of course, not optimal. And this is why, again, I repeat my congratulations to EVPA for this type of publication. The third obstacle relates to liquidity. So it is still difficult for crowdfunding platforms to ensure that sufficient capital is matched with sufficiently high quality deal flow in terms of projects. And this is one of the themes that still remains. And we hope that the European regulation will help reduce this difficulty even more. So starting from this point, we have actually realized that these 3 obstacles could basically be reduced if we included in the equation another player. And when I speak about including another player, I think about match funding, which is something that Arnaud was mentioning in his introduction. And when we think about match funding, in the next slide, you will see that we have identified that a number of organizations could actually jump into the crowdfunding dynamic, so that it wouldn't be just a relationship between the crowdfunding platform connecting those that seek funding to those that are willing to provide funding, but that we could add a third player. Third player is a capital provider and who is able to reduce the uncertainty, increase trust because it's an established stakeholder, and also ensure that there is a consistent deal flow in terms of project. And so these third players we have seen by collecting best practices and looking at the sector that in most cases is represented by a public authority or a foundation or an investment fund or any financial intermediary or even the big corporates. And so when we add this third player to the equation, we not only reduce the obstacles, but also improve the efficacy and efficiency of crowdfunding. And we have seen that there are specific sectors in which this match funding dynamic works best, which are namely social innovation, renewable energy, circular economy, culture and creativity, which are those sectors where there is a bit of a market gap in terms of access to capital. But then we also see that it works quite well in agriculture and business growth and internationalization in general. So crowdfunding is quite flexible, quite approachable. Introducing a third player could only bring a win-win situation for all those parties involved. And so when thinking about this, we have actually developed a second report, which is coming out and being published next week. If we move to the next slide, I will just introduce you some key points of the report. The report will be called Scaling Up Partnerships, because we're focusing on looking at these partnerships between crowdfunding platforms and, well, in this case, public authorities. And it's a theoretical framework that public authorities, but also private sector could use to understand better how this partnership works. So basically, we have collected 22 case studies from 8 European countries. We have 7 member states and the UK. And we have looked at grant-on-grant combination, so reward or donation crowdfunding plus grant-based subsidies. But we also looked at financial schemes, so the integration of financial products with financial crowdfunding. So what we present in the report is a detailed overview on what has been happening in Europe in the past 2 or 3 years in this sector and how these partnerships could be replicated by other stakeholders. So how to set up a match funding initiative. And this is, of course, tailored on public authorities, but can be replicated by a number of different interested parties. I take the opportunity to invite you to the official presentation of the report, which will be next week at our 6th CrowdCamp, taking place online. So you have all the information at the link. I know you will receive the slides, so you're all very welcome to join if you're interested in learning more. And so I think that this is more or less the end of my presentation. I will just introduce the European Crowdfunding Network as a closing remark so that you all know what we are and what we do. We're based in Brussels. We were set up in 2013. And what we do is we represent, try to innovate, and we promote the crowdfunding sector in Europe because we think it's a key aspect for innovation, entrepreneurship, and it can be absolutely relevant for all stakeholders. Currently, we're 12. We try to cover 16 European countries directly through our members, which are at the moment 80. And we organize 2 annual conferences, one of which is, as I said, CrowdCamp, taking place next week online. We're the typical Brussels-based association, a European association, so we focus, of course, on policy, establishing and maintaining dialogue with the European institutions and with fellow trade bodies or organizations, as in the case of EVPA. And we know that we cannot do this without training people, educating people, and we cannot perform any educational activity without having a sound research base that supports us. So these are 3 core pillars of our activities. And the last one is, of course, the strong focus that we maintain on conduct and ethics. So our members try to comply with our own code of conduct, which sets higher standards, and we try, on the other hand, to promote best practices, transparency, and fairness. Thank you all for the time, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Francesca. It's been a great overview of what's crowdfunding, how it's been evolving, and what's the ECN. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for the inputs that you've been providing us during this research project. So really thanks again. We will now look at the case of Lita. So I would like to welcome Pierre Smithgal, who will provide us with a short overview of his organization. Pierre, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Arnaud. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be a part of this webinar this morning. So I'm gonna try to be short, like in 5 minutes. So for those who don't know Lita, we have become the first social investment crowdfunding platform in Europe, and we are very active on promoting a new social and ecological economy. So on the next slides, a bit of overview. So we have been very active on 3 main verticals. The first one is to increase awareness in bringing together private individuals and social entrepreneurs. The second one is working on the investment scheme, bringing new financial instruments and enabling various entrepreneurs to have access to investments. And the last one, we are very active on the advocacy activities in transition and transformation of the economy based on social inclusion and reduction in the carbon intensity. On the next slide, I guess you can see some historical background. So over a 6 years period horizon, basically we increased a lot our figures. So we double each year since 2015 in terms of deals financed and in terms of amount collected. So today, at the end of 2020, we managed 140 campaign, represented a total amount of 70 million euros. And we developed 3 platforms, so in France, in Belgium, and in Italy, covering a broader European market. In terms, I guess the next slide is about the sectors. So the value added of the platform is to being able to fundraise from 100k euros up to 5 million, meaning that we can cover early stage startups, but also bring financing opportunities for more mature companies in equity and quasi equity. So we are very active in 6 main sectors, as you can read. So meaning 6 different assets. So the startup ecosystem, startup for good, so innovative startups at different stage of development. The solidarity economy category, so where we can find cooperatives, associations, and traditional players of impact economy in France. Sustainable housing, it's a very one of the main focus of Lita in France. Infrastructures, bringing responsible energy to the market. Close to you projects, and as I said, more mature structures, working on relocation and a sustainable industrial sector, so responsible SMEs. On the next slides, I guess you have, a view on the different stages on the platform. So Lita, at the very beginning, invested a lot in designing a collaboration strategies with institutional investors, and we have put a high focus on building on strong analysis teams in order to increase the notoriety on the market and to be able to co-invest with institutional investors. So that's a strong point I would like to highlight this morning. We designed a specific process on the platform to be able to co-invest on a pari passu basis and to be integrated in the fundraising schedule of the projects, meaning that we are trying to decrease as short as possible the processes and to be very active in the fundraising phase. So basically, since the very beginning, we try to commit with co-investors, submitting binding LOEs. Then we planify our investment committee, and then we launch the campaign on the pre-collect phase when negotiating the main conditions of the investments. And during the roadshow, we capitalize on the collect in order to be able to close the deal all at the same time on a short period. So the platforms is responsible of all the process. So basically, we have the analyst teams. So we have a team of 10 people. Then we have the team responsible of the animation of the campaign and the advisory part for the citizens and the social investors. And then we also develop a lot the technological part in order to be able to manage the follow-up of the deals and all the administrative, I mean the fintech part after the investments. So I guess that's it for the presentation of Lita. I wasn't that much specific on the figures and the realizations because you can read everything on the presentation. But I would be pleased to explain more about the collaboration strategy we developed during the next presentations.
That's been great. Thank you so much, Pierre. Yeah, I think your co-investment approach is really interesting. So thank you for sharing this process. And we will look now more in depth, in detail into it, having the example of INCO. So Jean-Sébastien, if you could jump in and provide us some insights on this partnership you have been putting together. I think you are muted, Jean-Sébastien. We cannot hear you.
Thank you, Arno, for unmuting me. So good morning, everyone. Very happy, of course, to be part of this webinar and to talk about crowd equity and crowd equity platform. And I think it was quite interesting to talk to you a bit this morning about how institutional investors or like investment fund like INCO can collaborate with a platform such as Lita, which is now the kind of the key player in terms of crowd equity platform in France for social economy, but also generally speaking as a crowd equity platform. So as it was mentioned earlier in the introduction by Arno, the collaboration between INCO and Lita relies mainly on two pillars. First, we have a financial partnership as INCO invested in Lita back to 2016. So that was the first part. But then it also became quite obvious that we will have investment opportunities in common, and that's why in 2017 we set up this partnership that aims at making different institutions of the social economy work together to give basically more funds to social entrepreneurs. So when we started to work with LITA since 2016, it was pretty obvious that we had a shared vision about what social economy stands for and how we could try to promote it together. So just to give you a bit of context about Inco, it's a company that now manages 5 investment funds dedicated to social economy and aims at providing social entrepreneurs with funds to scale up and develop their business, but also, of course, their impact. The impact is at the core of their activity. So we are quite close to LITA in terms of vision and in terms of our approach to impact investing. We have investment criteria that are quite similar in terms of the size of the investment and how we select companies in which we want to invest. So that's why in 2017 we started this partnership that basically relies on quite close cooperation in terms of opportunities sourcing for investment. So on a very concrete basis, we have a monthly meeting to talk also about investment opportunities, but as well as about our investees that we have in common, or to talk about some specific points related to some due diligence process that we are doing together, as we have, as I said, an approach that is quite similar in at LITA, at Inco, of course. It's very useful for us to share our vision on a specific company to see if it really fits in our investment thesis. So it's also a matter of gaining time and to be more efficient in our due diligence to really exchange information as co-investor during this process. And since this partnership was set up in 2017, we have co-invested in like 18 companies, as it's mentioned in the next slide. So it really shows that this partnership is really key, I think, for LITA and of course for Inco as well, as the total amount invested in those 18 companies represent now like 20% of the assets under management at one of our funds, which is the Aviva Impact Investing Funds fund, which is one of our main investment vehicle managed at Inco, and it's the vehicle that is concerned by this partnership with LITA. So it's quite material to have this partnership. Of course, it helps I think both organizations to be more efficient in the sourcing of investment opportunities. And for the investees, so basically the social entrepreneurs, I think it also gives them a common approach for their new shareholders, and the composition of the new shareholders is of course key for social entrepreneurs who are not necessarily familiar with capital increase activity. The fact they have at least 2 shareholders that are aligned in terms of values and financial approach also can be quite reassuring for them as well. So we have some successful stories among these 18 companies. And to give you a very concrete example, we co-invested in a startup called Roger Voice with Lita, which is an app enabling deaf people or hard of hearing people to take calls through their smartphone. So they can really they don't feel excluded from the society actually. So it has a very strong social impact, and it on an economic point of view, it was a pretty successful company whose activity has significantly increased over the last 4 years. So it shows that the company that we invest in with Lita can have a strong social impact, but also be very successful in terms of financial perspective. And I think it's something we both share with Lita, that economic profitability and social impact shouldn't be opposite, but actually can work together. And maybe a last point also that I wanted to highlight this morning is that we think at INCO that giving access to individuals to impact investment is really key, and is a part of the somehow social mission of the impact investing funds. That's why we also, each time we have an investment opportunity that we think would be suitable for Lita's investment thesis, we introduce them to the entrepreneurs, but of course it can work both ways. And very recently we worked together with Pierre on a social company where we are currently in the closing phase. But before we starting working with this company, the entrepreneur had never heard of the crowd equity platform, and especially Lita, and he was very interested in this quite innovative approach. And then we are currently, as I said, working on the closing phase, and Lita will be included in the funding of this company, and the entrepreneur is really happy to work with a crowd equity platform such as Lita, because he really thinks that companies and the way they are funded should really also benefit to the whole society through this kind of innovative funding.
That's great, Sebastian. Thank you so much for this overview of the partnership and these examples you have provided. I think it's an excellent case of collaboration between an impact fund and a crowd equity crowdfunding platform. So as you can see, we had here prepared 4 questions for both of you, but we are unfortunately short of time. So I would like to ask Pierre if very briefly you could just tell us a little bit your side on the partnership you have with INCO, and if you can just tell us very briefly what do you think that has came from it, and what are the learnings for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jean-Sébastien has been very complete. So I mean, the partnership is super precious for us in terms of collaboration, and it has impact at many levels. I guess the main impact for us is to increase and change the perception of crowdfunding platforms, proving that it can be a strong solution to access financing for social entrepreneurs, and it also increases the notoriety in terms of professionalization, and that in the end is just a difference in terms of capital origination, but not in terms of professionalism. And yeah, I mean, it has impacted at many levels in terms of having a broader market, access to market, deal sharing, savings in terms of time of analysis. And as for the challenges, I guess it's to be able to keep the process flexible and to design the right process in order to match INCO processes and ours in terms of the length of the collect, and also to be able to lock the deals together, not being direct competitors, meaning also to be able to both split the right amount in the collect, because the market has been very dynamic over the next years in France with many impact investing funds. So just ensuring that we keep working together.
That's great, Pierre. Thank you for also sharing your view on this. Sorry that we go a bit fast into this, but it's a great case, and we want to leave some space for Q&A. So if anyone has another question, feel free to write it down. And now we will go through the collaboration with BNP Paribas Asset Management. Thibault, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'll try to be as short as possible, as we're a bit late, and then just feel free to ask some questions. I'll start with a short presentation of what we do at BNP Paribas Asset Management, because it's quite specific. Thanks for displaying the slide. So I'm in the social investing investment team. So we have 13 what we call social funds. So it's where between 5 and 10% of the assets of the funds are invested, mostly in France in the social economy. 8 of these funds have a financial label, and it represents approximately 128 million euros that we have invested in social businesses. So it's 25 companies and associations. We also have the first fund dedicated to social impact bonds. We are invested in microfinance, and we have a lot of experience in the team. So at BNP Paribas Asset Management, we are investing in social investments. We have been for 17 years. And our money comes, it's not the money from BNP Paribas, but it's money from employees who are saving their money and their kind of yearly bonuses in investment funds. And we are managing these funds. So we are basically managing everyone's money, and for those employees who decided to invest in the social economy. So we can move on to the next slide, and feel free if you have any questions about what we do at BNP Paribas. I don't want to make this too long, and go to the subject that we are actually interested in today. So our partnership with Lita, it has been going on since the beginning of last year, so beginning of 2020. And we have three pillars, let's say, with this partnership. So the idea is first to share the deal flow, a bit like the partnership with INCO. So our funds at BNP Paribas Asset Management are growing very fast. Social investments is quite in today, and a lot of employees want to save their money in these funds. So we are always looking for new deals, and on some issues we realized that we were actually co-investing with Lita, or looking at the same companies. So we thought, okay, let's share on a regular basis what deals we actually see on the market. So the idea is to have monthly meetings between the investment teams and talk about the companies or associations we've met. So one example is a Maison des Sages. They do elderly homes, and Pierre told us about it in the team, and then we actually got to meet the management and see the project they were actually putting in place. So it's quite interesting for us. For us, it's a bit an early stage project, but we do that a lot, meeting prospects that are maybe a bit too young for us now, but we'll be investing in maybe in 2 or 3 years. We are really, I didn't mention it before, investing in the scale-up process, not so much at the startup stage. Then we're also sharing sector insights with Lita. So of course, everyone has different opinions, or maybe not always, but on some trends or things that are coming up, and then we're able to share opinions. What's very interesting for us at the moment So our strategy was first to really focus on the social part of investments at BNP Paribas. And now we are trying to broaden a bit our investment universe and go more in the environmental sector, which historically we weren't doing so much. So that's a sector we want to get more knowledge about. So it's kind of the sustainable housing that Pierre has been talking about before, where we are a lot in social housing, but there's also, you know, all about this renovation of flats and houses to make them less energy consuming. So that's really a thing we want to get more knowledge about, and we will be able to talk about. And also we are actually co-investing on some deals. So for example, there is the Foncière Léopold Bélan. So it's a foundation who's running, for example, elderly homes, and they are now acquiring some places, and we're actually co-investing with Lita in that deal. So for us, it's interesting because we've been able to share opinions during the due diligence process, but also now we have to do the follow-up. There will be maybe new deals going on, and we can keep talking about it and share the knowledge. So basically that are the 3 pillars of the partnership, and feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you very much, Thibaut. Sorry, the slides. Thank you very much, Thibaut, for this overview. And before we jump to the Q&A, if very briefly, Pierre, you have something to eat, and tell us how your collaboration with BNP Paribas, what you have gained from it, and what are the learnings you take from it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I have not done much to add actually, but yeah, it's also a strong partnership. I guess one other key aspect is maybe the territorial implementation in the employment, because for us as a young startup, it's complicated to reach all the departments, especially in France, because you have many splits between the regions. And thanks to BNP Paribas, we also work together in terms of distribution and notoriety, meaning that all of their bankers dedicated to social economy. So I guess it's a team of 150 bankers in every regions, promote Lita as a complementary solution in equity financing and also as a debt financing solution. So it's very precious to us because we never have such opportunity to reach that audience without the specific distribution channel. I guess it's also maybe a way, I mean, the collaboration between such institutional actor and a crowdfunding platform as Lita to enable those institutions to diversify their investments and maybe to take a bit more risk in early stage financing round, so that we can split together the total amount, and they can, you know, like access a new market, cover a new market that they would not be able to cover alone in their investment thesis. So I guess that's also an aspect to highlight.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is super interesting. Thanks you all for your contributions to this webinar, for your explanations. I think it's been great to know from Francesca, but also from the case of Lita and the collaboration with BNP Paribas. We have little time left, but we can ask a couple of questions from the audience. So I would like to invite everyone from the panel to the Q&A. And we have a first question that is actually for Pierre. Johan Nesme is asking if Lita is profitable, if it's in a growth stage, or if it's funded by foundations or other sources.
Okay, thank you for the question. So we did 3 fundraising rounds, so seed, Series A, and pre-Series B, and we are preparing the next round for next year. And we breaked even last year in France, and so we are profitable in France, but we invested a lot in the technology, especially to develop the platform in Europe. So taking into account the amortization of the platform, we are not break-even in net result, but just in EBITDA.
That's great. We have another question from Maurizio O'Brien asking to Pierre and Thibault about the alignment of the due diligence criteria on both sides. What tips could you give to a crowdfunding platform to start conversations with?
I think we have kind of the same criteria. I mean, we are both looking very detailed into the due diligence. The first criteria is, of course, the impact. So first we check that we are aligned on our impact criteria and that we feel that the management of the company is really taking impact seriously and that it's at the core of the project and not just a side aspect for communication purposes or whatever. So that's the first thing we look at very seriously. And then, of course, the financial impact. I mean, at the end we have the same clients. I mean, it's just individuals who are investing their money, and we have to make sure that they don't lose it in the end, because for our credibility, it's the key. So we're looking very detailed into the financial aspects. And yeah, I think of course we can share our opinions on the financial analysis, but both teams have the experience to actually do a proper due diligence.
And I will also add that you have to put a lot of time and energy in the follow-on of the project, because we are very active in providing to advising the entrepreneurs after having invested, and it's taking a lot of time. We structured boards every 3 months, especially when you invest in very early stage startups. So that's also a key aspect to have in mind, because the success of the portfolio depends a lot of the counseling and advisory part you're providing after the investment.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And yeah, for the audience to know, also the alignment of the due diligence is something we look at the publication. So feel free to have a look at it and to have more insights about this. But it's been great. Unfortunately, we will have to leave some questions unanswered, but we will tackle them by email. So for those that have asked something that we couldn't ask to the panel, we will get back to you by email to reply to your questions. So since we are short of time, I would like to start closing the webinar. First of all, say that this webinar is a part of a webinar series called Crowdfunding for Impact, and we will have a second webinar looking at how crowdfunding platforms can unlock follow-on funding. So we will have the case of Bolsa Social, complementing different types of investment vehicles in Spain, and we will have them on Wednesday, 7th July at 3 p.m. Brussels time. So feel free to go to the website. I guess my colleagues are putting the link on the chat, but you can also access to it with your phone from this QR code, and we hope to see you all there. Of course, have a look at the publication. It's been shared before, the link also on the chat. So download it, have a read to it, and let us know if you have any feedback on it. We'll be glad to hear from anyone from you. That's it. So thank you very much for your attention. And again, thank you to our partners, to the European Commission, to Innovate OK, and of course, to what have been our partners throughout all these projects that have Fund for Impact. Have a good day and hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.